I'm just going to give you a little bit of information now as to why Bluepegasos make 3 different grades of horseshoe. It's a very frequently asked question when people are ordering horseshoes for the first time as to which grade of shoe they should choose. So I'll just tell you a few things about each shoe that might help in your decision making process when you're ordering a shoe. So the 3 grades they come in are the Medic Blue, the Joint Saver and the Transition. Now the Medic Blue is the softest of the shoes. As you can see, it's an incredibly flexible shoe. Now I'm just doing this in my fingers. Remember that a horse is 400 to 500 kilos, and every time that horse lands, it's putting about 1.5 tons worth of pressure onto the ground. So these shoes, although being incredibly flexible and absorbing an awful amount of concussion, are not necessarily the choice for every horse. And the reason for that is that each horse has a slightly different conformation. Now conformation will dictate your horse's action, okay? So if you've got a horse that's a little bit turned out at the knee or over at the knee, or it has some kind of conformational trait that makes that hoof twist upon landing or takeoff, then you may find some issues with the Bluepegasos Medic Blue shoe. Now the reason for that is because the shoe is so flexible, you will then only be relying on the strength of the nails to hold the shoe in place. Now I'll demonstrate that by the use of, say, a paddling horse. So as a paddling horse lands and takes off, it tends to push on one corner of the shoe as it pushes away like that and completes its paddling action. Comes back around and lands, pushes on the outside of the shoe and then twists away to complete its paddling action. So that doesn't necessarily always work with a blue shoe. Because the shoe is so flexible and the constant pressure of it being pushed from the paddling action of the horse, it can make the horseshoe tend to wander around the hoof like so. Now there's plenty of different conformational traits that mean a horse doesn't actually travel straight. Now it's perfectly normal for some horses to travel a little bit skew-if, and as long as your trim's right and as best as you can do and balanced, then you just have to deal with what you have with the horse. Particularly in hind ends, it's very common for a hind end of a horse to twist as in the canter. It's a 3-beater gait. The last hoof that's pushing off generally tends to twist a little bit like this, and for that reason the blue shoe is not necessarily the choice for that horse. Now being the softest shoe, it's also very good for therapeutic reasons. If you have a horse that's convalescing from illness or an ailment of some description, or mechanical founder or laminitis or something like that, then this shoe is a very good option for that. Being so soft, it allows the hoof a little bit of protection and support, but still flexes on all planes for the horse to remain comfortable. It's also a very good riding option for a lot of horses, just not every horse. Okay, so just bear in mind that if you try a blue shoe and your horse twists a little bit in the action and the shoe moves around a little bit, it's purely because this shoe's a little bit soft for that horse. So in which case you'd want to move up to the Joint Saver shoe. Now the Joint Saver shoe is the middle of the road shoe, the middle hardness if you like. It's still an incredibly flexible shoe. It's just made of a little firmer material, or more firmer material than the blue shoe. So these then have a little bit more holding power in the nails. So if you have a horse that has a slight paddle, like so, then these shoes will probably hold on to it a little bit better. Now they still absorb concussion, just like the blue shoes do, just like the grey shoes do. All the shoes absorb concussion, all the shoes are flexible. They just come in 3 different grades to suit different types of horses. So if you're still having issues with these shoes in the orange model, twisting slightly on the hoof because of the horse's action, then your best option is to go to the Transition shoe. Now the Transition shoe is named the Transition because it is the best option to take a horse out of steel shoes into polyurethane shoes. And the reason for that is, while a horse is in a steel shoe, the hoof can flex to a certain degree on the horizontal plane like so at the heels, but it doesn't have any shear in the vertical plane like so. And by that I mean that if a horse steps on uneven ground, on this side the heel may very well be hitting the ground, this one might be on a rock or so, and you'll see how the heels can shear like this. Now it's perfectly normal for a horse's hoof to shear like that, and that's why they have heel bulbs at the back that are independent from each other, so they can do this. So when you take a horse out of steel shoes, they can sometimes find that feeling quite uncomfortable because those tissues in the heel bulbs particularly have become quite weak from not being exercised on that vertical plane. So immediately coming out of steel shoes into a polyurethane shoe, it's a good idea to give them that little bit firmer shoe to support those tissues until they strengthen and start to loosen up a little bit. So this is the shear action. You can see the shoe is still flexible, just not quite as flexible as the other shoes. So it's just that slightly firmer option to give horses coming out of steel shoes that little bit more comfort. And you can see I'm still flexing that in my hand quite easily. Remember, a horse is about 500 kilos, so they can put a lot more pressure on that than I can with my hands. Now these are still a very good riding option for a lot of horses. Like I say before, if the shoe tends to be twisting a little bit and you can't fix it in your trim and your nailing pattern's good and you're using good quality E-head nails and the shoe is still starting to twist a little bit, then try the transition shoe. Now they all have very good levels of grip and they all have very good levels of concussion absorption. They're all flexible. There's no particular model that will suit every horse in every situation. That's why there's 3 different grades. So you can cover a few different bases on a bunch of different horses. But personally, I shoe with a lot of these shoes in a year. I put thousands of these shoes on and I have no particular favourite of these shoes. I just put a shoe on that suits that particular horse. Some horses may wear out a transition very quickly, in which case I will put them into a joint saver, and that just might last a little bit longer for them. Whereas some horses may wear out a blue shoe very quickly for some reason, so then I might try them in a transition shoe. Some horses may twist these shoes slightly, in which case I'll try another type of shoe. So it's just a matter of working out which shoe is the best to suit that horse in that particular riding environment, that particular horse and its rider, and the type of work it does. So don't be put off by the 3 different grades. When you're first trying the bluepegasos shoes, it really doesn't matter which shoe you try. They're all very good at what they do, okay? It's just a matter of fine-tuning which one to choose in the longer term. So I have horses that I run in the blue shoes, horses I run in the orange, and horses I run in the grey. If at the end of the day I've only got greys left in my toolbox, then I'll use them quite happily on any horse in any situation. Now, all the shoes have varying levels of grip on different surfaces. The softer shoe obviously will have a hell of a lot more grip because it is soft and gives so easily when it hits rough terrain. So you need to consider that in the type of terrain that you're working on. So every hoof, when it lands, has to have a certain natural amount of slide. That is, you don't want the hoof to hit the ground and stop dead. You want it to be able to slide a little bit naturally, like a hoof does when it hits the ground. So keep in mind that when you're choosing the ground surface which you're working on. If you were doing a lot of fast work on bitumen, say, and I don't know why anyone would, but some people may, then the blue shoe would probably be not suitable for that application because of its high levels of grip. So on gravel roads and things like that where the surface is a little bit loose, absolutely perfect. All these shoes are really good at what they do, and if you're ordering for the first time, don't worry about which shoe you necessarily choose. Just keep in mind that if one doesn't quite work out the way you would like it, just order the next one the next time. So over the 3 shoeing cycles, you'll be able to sort out which shoe works properly on that horse. Now the other thing I'm just going to take you through is why bluepegasos have 2 different models. Okay, so there's a CCC, which is triple clipped. So you've got 2 side clips and 1 toe clip. And then you've got the RCC, which is 2 side clips and a rolled toe. Now all 3 grades of shoe, every size comes in the 2 different models. So the reason for this basically is some people like to use clips, some people don't. Some farriers like to use side clips, some farriers like to use toe clips. Likewise, on a hind foot, you might not be able to match up the side clips with the narrow style of hoof you have on the hind, in which case you'll use the toe clip and then you'll just snip these off. Whereas if your side clips line up and you don't need your toe clip, you can snip off your toe clip. Or you can use all 3 if you like. It really doesn't matter which combination of clips you use. You can take off one side and keep two, vice versa, the other side keep two, your toe clips, side clips, whichever you like to use. Now, the other shoe, the RCC, has a roll at the breakover. I hope you can see that there on the video. So that roll basically just promotes a slightly faster breakover on the hoof. So your white line, as you were trimming your hoof, your white line would basically come to the base of this roll here on the toe of the shoe, and then that little roll would then be rasped into the wall of the hoof at the toe. What this does is provide a little bit of a break, so it acts as a toe clip of sorts. It stops the shoe from tending to want to migrate back on the hoof, and it also has the horse will wear its own breakover very quickly on the base of the shoe, the bottom of the shoe, so the horse will just be able to turn over that little bit faster. Again, it doesn't really matter which shoe you choose when you're buying for the first time. They both do basically the same job. And certainly from my perspective, when I'm shoeing horses, I'm not particularly worried which shoe I take out of the box. So if I pull out the CCC shoe, I'm happy to put that on. If I pull out the RCC, I'll happily put that on. You can usually make the shoe work on any hoof you like. Ideally, I guess the toe clip is more suitable for hind feet, because generally the shapes of hind feet are a little bit narrower. And if you have a long, narrow hoof, then your side clips won't really match, in which case you use your toe clip. But I find that these RCC or the Triple C work on most hooves with the type of trimming that I do. So there again, when you're choosing a model from the website for the first time, don't get stressed about whether you want the 3 clips or the 2 clips in the rolled toe. Either or will work. You just need to work out which is going to suit you longer term. And your farrier or your owner trimmer, if you're doing it yourself, you'll be able to decide which one you want to use and the reasons why you want to use it. So just keep in mind that this one just promotes a slightly faster breakover on some horses, and particularly good if you want to keep toes particularly short. Okay, so I hope that helps you in your decision when it comes time to order shoes off the website. So just keep in mind that all the shoes are very flexible and they all absorb concussion. One shoe is not better than the other, they're just better than the other for specific horses in specific environments. And the best way to work that out is to try them and see how you go with it. And we hope you have great success with the shoes.